The panicked man was bound to a long table. A girl looks like a high school student is applying ice cubes to his private area, claiming that she will perform a castrating surgery for him. The man was trembling in fear, what he could have done to be so hated by the girl. Will the castration be successful? Can the girl escape unscathed? Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Pitaya Movie Channel. Uncle Photographer and Lowly Little Heart are online friends. They decided to meet at the Nightingale Cafe at 11 a.m. In the Nightingale Cafe, Lowly Little Heart in a red hoodie was immersing in the deliciousness of a chocolate cake. Uncle Photographer's voice emerged from behind. Lowly Little Heart turned around with her big cute eyes staring at her friend of 3 weeks, her lips coated with enticing chocolate sauce. The two called out each other's name, Jeff and Helen. Jeff wiped the chocolate sauce from Helen's lips incredibly, placed it in his own mouth to taste. They exchanged impressions of each another as old friends. Chatty Helen didn't notice a missing person's notice on the wall. The beautiful young girl, Donna, who was missing, silently watched them. Jeff becomes curious on the books in Helen's bag. Helen quickly covered the book, appearing uneasy. She told Jeff that her father is a teacher in a medical school. She loves medical courses, often attended medical classes in college. Jeff joked that medical college students must be trying to chase for her. Helen blurted out that she is only 14. Those medical college students are old enough to be her father. Gazing upon the much older Jeff, Helen suddenly realized her slip of the tongue, hastily offered an explanation. Jeff repeatedly told her that he didn't mind, commenting that Helen appeared to be much more mature than her actual age. Never expected meeting such a unique girl. Shyly, Helen said, "I feel the same way." Jeff took Helen shopping. Helen took a liking to a green t-shirt, but she didn't have enough money. Without hesitation, Jeff told the salesperson to get a small size for Helen, generously paid for it, and teasingly told her, "You owe me. You need to be my model to repay." Helen shared with Jeff the frustrations of being an underage girl. For instance, attending late-night concerts was impossible, like the Guthrie Govan concert she'd missed. Jeff told her he had seen the Guthrie Govans' performance and could share bootleg MP3s with her. Helen said disappointedly, "I'll have to wait till getting back home to listen." Jeff responded helplessly, "You'll have to wait. I can't take you to my place. That would be too outrageous." In the fitting room, Helen warned Jeff not to peek. Jeff said he'd already seen what he wanted to see. Wearing a bra, Helen playfully asked Jeff, "Is this how models dress for photo shoots?" Looking at the childish Helen, Jeff said, "Don't tease me, I'll get crazy." The t-shirt Jeff chose indeed fit Helen perfectly. After trying on the clothes, Helen told Jeff that she was a rebellious girl. Although not being of age, she still planned to go to Jeff's place because that suited her personality. In the elevator, the two could not hide the joy of their first date. The speeding car brought Helen to Jeff's home. Helen finally heard the Guthrie Govan songs. As Jeff brought her a drink, Helen said parents had warned her to only drink what she had prepared herself. She told Jeff that she could make an even better drink. Helen went to the kitchen to make a drink and discussed the model photos on Jeff's walls. Helen asked Jeff why he had photos in magazines hanging on his wall. Jeff said his home was his photography studio. The photos served as a gallery for potential clients. Helen asked if all the photos were taken here. Jeff confirmed and showed Helen his photography studio. The two chatted and sipped Helen's handmade cocktail in the living room. Helen teased Jeff, who was drinking slowly. "Don't tell me your capacity is worse than mine." Jeff immediately proposed a toast. Helen asked Jeff what it felt like to see beautiful women every day. Jeff said there was always people around. He never had a chance to be alone with them. Helen seemed to want to ask something but hesitated. This aroused Jeff's curiosity. He kept asking Helen for her question. Helen looked at Jeff's half-finished drink and said she would tell him once he finished the drink. Jeff finished the rest of the drink in one gulp. Helen gave him an ambiguous smile. "Now you know what I wanted to ask, right?" Jeff realized, "You wanted to ask how many models I've slept with, right?" Helen denied it, but still asked, "How many?" Jeff said never. Most of them were underage and he would end up in jail. Helen wondered, "Isn't taking such photos illegal?" Jeff said he knew the law and carefully navigated its boundaries. He had only been with one when he was young. Upon hearing Jeff's words, Helen immediately ran into the bedroom on intuition. Found the girl's photo on the wall. The back of the photo had a few words. Janelle 3/19 inches Jeff, with a complex look, hung the photo back on the wall. Told Helen the girl was his first one. All his skills were tested on her, Helen understood, saying, "First love, huh? Where is she now?" Jeff said, After signing with Ford, the girl broke up with him. Helen excitedly exclaimed, "I've seen her in magazines. She's a cover girl." She praised Jeff's photography skills. Helen thought Jeff still loved Janelle, but Jeff vehemently denied it. Helen looked at Jeff's depressed look and empathetically said, "Everyone has a Janelle in their heart." Helen asked Jeff to take photos of her, but refused to go to the photography studio. She pulled out a CD and jumped onto the couch in the living room. Took off her hoodie with a bra, only posing while wriggling on the couch. Jeff felt his head getting dizzy. Everything around him began to spin and blur. Helen and his own voice started to distort. In the end, Jeff fainted under Helen's mocking gaze. Jeff woke up groggily, found himself tied on a chair in the living room. Helen came over and removed the cloth covering his head. Still drowsy, Jeff looked at Helen in confusion. Helen asked Jeff, "Do you remember what I said? Don't drink anything you didn't prepare by yourself. This advice applies to everyone." Seeing Jeff's bewildered face, Helen laughed and said, "I guess I got the dose of the drug and the drink wrong." Jeff asked in confusion, "Is tying me up a part of the game?" Helen glared at him fiercely and said, "Jeff, the game is over. Wake up." Jeff still couldn't believe. He asked, "Is this a teenage prank?" Helen gritted her teeth and corrected him. "It's a teenager, but it's not a prank." Jeff still hadn't fully understand what happened. Asked Helen what she wanted to do. Helen replied that it's her question for him. What's all the half-naked young girls' photos hanging in his room? For Jeff instantly realized Helen's intention. Sensing danger, he began to shout out for help. Helen told him screaming was futile. She knew today his neighbors would be absent, one at work and another out for a trip. Astonished, Jeff asked if she'd been stalking him. Helen retorted that he'd been stalking her instead. In various chat rooms, he constantly flirted with different women, yet only befriended those much younger than himself. Helen questioned why an adult would be infatuated with a young girl. His tone even got changed when he hid behind the camera and spoke. Jeff argued his tone changed because he was drugged. Helen angrily said yes. Drugged by a sweet 14-year-old girl, Jeff claimed Helen had lured him. Helen laughed, saying they all claimed to be lured. Jeff asked who they were. Helen shouted pedophiles. They turned the blame onto the children. Girls may pretend to be women, but that doesn't mean they can do what women do. Adults have the responsibility. If a girl tries to flirt, they should pretend not to hear and try not encouraging her. If a young girl wanted to toast with them, they should take the drink away, not clink. Jeff argued he wasn't a pedophile. Threatened Helen if she let him go now. He wouldn't blame further. Helen told him she would release him, but not yet. Helen pushed Jeff into the bedroom. She wanted to find evidence of his pedophilia. Such individuals would undoubtedly have photographs. Helen rummaged around in the bedroom. Jeff insisted that he was not a pedophile and told Helen many philanthropic photos he took are in the living room eco-friendliness. Forest, nature, Helen mocked. Masterpieces of nature were not displayed. Instead, hanging up photos of half-naked girls brought him peace. Not being satisfied with just looking at pictures, he assaulted. When met with resistance during the assault, he even hurt those girls. Helen dug up several letters from the drawer in the bedroom. Those are the breakup letters from Jeff's first love, Janelle. Helen read them out in a mocking tone. Jeff painfully stopped Helen from continuing, saying everyone has embarrassing pasts. Keeping the letters doesn't mean anything. Helen cruelly pointed out, Jeff must have read these letters many times, and he didn't let go of being abandoned. As he claimed, the reason he kept dating young girls was to relive the beautiful memories of his youth. With his first love hidden in his heart, Helen began a new round of searching. She didn't believe a lecher would have no explicit photos at home. From his fearless eyes, she firmly believed there must be more explicit photos. Hidden in somewhere secretly, she searched frantically in the bedroom like a madwoman. But other than finding a handgun under the bed, she found nothing. Helen headed toward the living room. Jeff, startled in the bedroom, began to struggle desperately. His legs almost broke free. Helen, pacing in the living room, suddenly stopped. She moved toward a wooden box on the floor filled with pebbles. She walked over, kicking the stones with her foot, then kneeled down and dug through the stones with her hands. A safe appeared in front of Helen's eyes. Helen got back to the bedroom to ask the combination from Jeff. Yet no matter how hard she demanded, Jeff remained silent. Helen said she had enough time. Jeff sincerely persuaded her to go home, claiming her family would worry about her if she did not go back by dinner. Helen confidently replied they would not. Jeff seemed to uncover a shocking secret, asking Helen with concern if her parents neglected her. And so forth, she sought solace in an older companion he offered to be her confidant, embracing her if she wished, or maintaining distance if she preferred. Helen played along with Jeff. then mercilessly mocked him. Though he understood a young girl's psychology, his tried and true tactics for deceiving them had no use on her. Helen sat beside the safe, racking her brain for its combination. Suddenly she had a flash of inspiration and feel like trying 319. This number held an unusual significance for both Jeff and his first love. Hearing this sequence, Jeff struggled to conceal his sadness. As Helen pressed 31989, the safe opened obediently as Helen thought there were a lot of alluring photos of young girls inside. What confused Helen was among them, there was only one photograph of a girl who was fully clothed. Helen gazed at the image and felt she knew her. At that moment, Jeff, who had secretly freed his feet, suddenly knocked Helen over, ran into the bedroom and grabbed the gun and returned to the living room. However, Helen gave him no opportunity. She subdued Jeff once more with a plastic wrap. When Jeff woke again, he found his trousers removed, an ice pack placed on his private part, and himself bound on a table in the living room. At this point, Helen was already in a surgeon's gown. Jeff pleaded that he never meant to hurt her, but merely wished to send her for the police. Helen brandished Donna's photo and asked Jeff how her photo got in his safe. Had he seen her since she disappeared? Jeff stated that he only had a coffee with Donna and took a photo of her fully clothed to cheer her up. He implored Helen to call the police. Helen retorted that sending him over to the police was too lenient, and that would be determined as his mental issue. He would simply receive medication and be released. This punishment was utterly useless for people like him. Jeff curiously asked Helen why she had applied the ice pack to his groin. Helen did not answer directly, instead looked at the tools in front of her and told him the suspector who hurt Donna said they would do this again. If she prevented from the root of the crime, the world would be safer. She had visited her father's medical laboratory and could perform the castration surgery alone. Jeff realized Helen's intention and struggled in terror, crying, "No, no." Helen comforted him with a smile. She would not perform the surgery just yet. As the area had not completely lost sensation, it required longer time with ice. Helen sat leisurely on the couch, composing an email to Jenel, sharing her relationship with Jeff and the matter of Donna and Jeff. Lying on the table, Jeff begged Helen to desist or else she would live a life of darkness, for he too had endured a similar experience. Helen removed the ice pack from Jeff's groin and began preparing for the surgery, cleaning the skin around the surgical site. Facing the loss of his most precious possession, Jeff screamed for help in terror. Helen warned him not to move. Admitting this was her first time performing the surgery, Jeff cursed Helen hysterically. Helen bitterly mocked him with a smile. Unsure if she was a born avenger or if the cold world had changed her, Jeff attempted to bribe Helen with money to let him go. Helen remained unmoved, continuing her preoperative preparations for the castration, spraying some strong liquor to disinfect the surgical part. Just as Jeff thought he was about to lose his manhood, Helen reluctantly stated that due to restored blood circulation, she had to halt the procedure once more and continue icing the area. Jeff breathed a sigh of relief. In the living room, Jeff clung to a piece of hope and tried to save himself. He tried all he could and used his body to move the table and get closer to the phone on the coffee table. As he almost succeeded, Helen walked over, informed him this was a scene she had deliberately set up for him. Jeff despaired and said, "Just kill me then." Helen replied, "I won't kill you directly." Helen pushed the table into Jeff's photography studio, grabbed out a camera and aimed it at him, intending to document the entire castration process. Jeff completely gave up, began recounting painful memories from his childhood. He said when he was 9 years old, he visited his aunt's house. His 4 or 5-year-old cousin, fresh out of the bath, nakedly leaped onto him, touching him all over. His aunt witnessed the scene, removed his trousers with her muddy hands and held him over the hearth to scorch his nether region. His tears sizzled as they fell on the stove. The following day, his mother took him home, and he never saw his aunt again. Jeff's tragic childhood did not move Helen. As Helen prepared for the surgery, she mocked Jeff for shirking responsibility, attributing his current beastly behavior. To the psychological trauma at his young age, Helen asked about Donna again. Jeff swore her disappearance had nothing to do with him and tearfully begged Helen not to castrate him. Helen took out the photos from the safe, saying if Jeff agreed to send these pictures to Janelle, she would leave immediately. Destroying his great image and his first love's memory was as unbearable for Jeff as being castrated. The dilemma drove him crazy. He screamed hopelessly, "Just kill me, please don't castrate me." Helen said sorry cruelly, saying she shouldn't have given him the hope of keeping his egg. She took out the medical book Jeff asked about earlier at the cafe, saying she would follow the procedures in the book for the surgery. She advised Jeff not to move to avoid cutting a major artery. Jeff lay there like a dead fish out of water, staring blankly as Helen operated on him. She updated the progress of the surgery as she went. Let's start on the right side, incise the scrotum. Now I'm going to suture it. I need to pull it tight, so it might be uncomfortable. Bear with me. There we go, halfway done. With Helen's updates, Jeff felt like a fish being slaughtered. Growing more and more desperate, cold sweat rolled down his forehead and cheeks. He almost unconsciously pleaded, "Stop, please," when he heard Helen say, "A man can live with just one egg, and it doesn't seem to affect normal function." Jeff began to shake his head vigorously, hoping for a miracle that Helen would stop, but Helen offered no hope, saying if she left one, it wouldn't punish Jeff. It would be better to remove both for his sake, so he wouldn't walk off balance. Finally, the surgery was over. Helen then tirelessly informed Jeff about post-operative precautions. She also gave him the address of a castration website, saying she learned the surgery from there. She casually picked up the removed parts from the surgery and asked Jeff, "Do you want to keep them as a souvenir?" Jeff cried in despair when he saw what was in her hand, but Helen had no intention of letting the suffering Jeff go. She continued to discuss with him how to dispose of the removed parts. Feeding them to small animals wasn't right. Crushing them as garbage wasn't good either. Sewing them back was an interesting idea. Helen poured water for Jeff to drink. Jeff asked her why she was being kind to him now. Helen said it was because she pitied him. He would have to constantly face his disabled body and exhaust his mind, trying to hide his disability. Helen told Jeff that everything was over. She would take a shower and leave. Jeff told her that no matter where Helen went, he would never let her go. Helen informed Jeff she would have no worries if she killed him now, but she wouldn't let him die so easily. In the studio, Jeff finally tried best to break free from the ropes. He quickly sat up to check his lower body and found out that he wasn't castrated by Helen. Tears of joy streamed down his face. He played the videotape and found out it wasn't the surgery video Helen had mentioned, but an animated show. Jeff entered the living room, picked up his phone, and was trying to dial 911 and call the police. He suddenly looked up and saw the cups that he and Helen had drank from on the table. He hesitated no further, turned off his phone cover, turned around, grabbed the scalpel Helen had used, and rushed towards the bathroom. The bathroom was filled with mist. The sound of the water could be heard through the curtain. Jeff unexpectedly pulled the shower curtain while the bathroom was empty. Suddenly, Helen appeared from behind and knocked Jeff down. She controlled him once again. In the living room, Helen started to set up the scene. She carefully wiped away her traces, called her friend to schedule a time for a movie, then wrote a confession for Jeff in his computer. The confession said that he wanted to shoot himself, but didn't have the bravery. She then called Janelle in the name of the police station, told her that something happened to Jeff, hinting that there was something personally related to her, hoping she would come over immediately. After everything was arranged, Helen hung Jeff up from the living room's crossbeam with ropes. Suddenly the doorbell rang. It turned out to be the neighbor. While talking to the neighbor, Helen was flustered and exposed some flaws, but she managed to deal with the puzzled neighbor and sent her away. Back into the house, Jeff said that the neighbor would become suspicious and come to save him. Helen saw through Jeff's plan. He could have escaped earlier, but he dared not to call the police or run. Now he only had two choices. The first was to leave the photos of Jeff and Donna, as well as the confession Helen had just typed in the computer for him. When someone looked for Jeff later, they would see everything Jeff would be forever branded as a pedophile. The second option was for her to kick down the chair, now destroy the photos Jeff had taken. Then no one would know why Jeff committed the suicide, not even Janelle. He would be dead, but his reputation would be fine. The furious Jeff attacked Helen when she approached him. After struggling fiercely, Helen managed to escape. Jeff broke free from the restraints once again. At this moment, Janelle, who had received Helen's call, was driving towards Jeff's house at full speed. On the rooftop, Jeff and Helen were fighting. Helen told Jeff that she had called Janelle and she would be arriving at Jeff's house soon. Hearing this news, Jeff was stunned. Helen pointed at the rope tied to the chimney and told Jeff that the choice she gave him earlier was still effective. If Jeff put the rope around his neck and ended it all, she would clear the evidence and save Jeff's reputation. Otherwise, when Janelle arrived, she would run into Janelle's arms nakedly, telling Jeff's first love the truth about him. Jeff asked Helen who she really was and why she was so determined to destroy him. Helen replied bitterly that she was just one of the countless girls harmed by the pedophiles, like Jeff. Janelle's car pulled into Jeff's driveway, Helen put the rope around Jeff's neck, telling him to put it on and jump directly, and she would destroy the evidence. That way, Janelle would never discover Jeff's crimes and would even sympathize with him, regretting of leaving him. At this moment, Janelle's voice calling for Jeff came through. Still unwilling to give up, Jeff told Helen that he didn't kill Donna. He was just a bystander who wanted to take a few pictures. He could tell Helen who killed Donna and help her find the murderer. But Helen's words shattered Jeff's illusions. She told Jeff that she knew he was talking about Alan. Coincidentally, before Alan committing suicide, he told her that it was Jeff who killed Donna Gennell's voice kept coming through. In despair, Jeff gave Helen one last look. Helen said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of the evidence." With the rope around his neck, Jeff jumped off the roof. Helen looked at Jeff, who had jumped, and said, "Maybe I won't." She wouldn't destroy the precious evidence just to save face for a pedophile. She wanted the whole world to see the ugly face of pedophiles. Helen hid from Janelle on the grassy slope and stealthily left Jeff's house. With a heart full of excitement for her successful revenge, she set off on her way home. The movie ended. Film Hard Candy. A story about revenge. Jeff, a pedophile, is lured into a trap step by step by the little girl Helen, being castrated and tormented both physically and mentally. Finally, the pedophile committed suicide. The little girl's revenge is fulfilled. The film is classified as a thriller, but there is hardly any gore throughout the movie. The entire film's horror is contributed to the scenes of Helen's castration. However, the real horror is not the physical castration, but the mental torment. Helen's revenge didn't give the audience a sense of exhilarating satisfaction. Jeff, burdened by worldly reputation, committed suicide in order to leave a beautiful image in the heart of his loved one, which makes people feel deeply sorrowful. Pedophilia is a mental disorder, mainly caused by abnormal psychological development. There are three main causes of the disease: cognitive distortion, neurobiology, and unfortunate life experiences. Obviously, Jeff's pedophilia is caused by the third reason. During childhood, he played sexual games with his cousin, got caught by his aunt, forced to accept punishment by burning his private parts with a stove. His first love disappeared once she succeeded in life. From childhood to adolescence, unfortunate life experiences made Jeff lose interest in the adult sexual world, and he became a pedophile patient. On the surface, a successful artist, photographer in secret, a sexual deviant who harmed young girls. But in order to maintain the beautiful image he once had in the heart of his first love, he chose to commit suicide to obtain Helen's promise of confidentiality. This shows that in deep down, he still yearned for beautiful things. From the perspective of the patient, the film killed a pedophile, but lacks a touch of warmth and tolerance. If the remaining goodness could wake up a little bit conscience, the fire of revenge would eventually be extinguished by a cleansed soul. Or Jeff's last wish traded through death is honored, even if not be cured. At least the world would leave a little space for the pitiful patient. What do you think? Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you for your continued support. See you in the next episode.